Hi, my name is Joseph Wirtz, and I'm doing my AJS 254 assignment, this time on human trafficking and the Blue campaign done by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So I'm holding the camera this time, so if I shake it around a little bit, I'm sorry. But I guess let's get right into it. First question really is, what is the Blue campaign? So the Blue campaign is a campaign set up by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and its main purpose is to really show how much of an issue human trafficking is and really get people involved in trying to stop it. So human trafficking is essentially where they describe it as modern day slavery, which is a very, very good explanation for it. It's basically forcing someone to do something against their will due to coercion, threats of violence, etc., etc. So, obviously, this is a very underground sort of operation, as human trafficking is a big violation of human rights. So, people who participate in it try to keep it underground, try to keep it on the wraps. So that makes it difficult to prosecute because you don't know about it. There are some we do know about, and those we can prosecute, but most cases probably go unsolved purely because no one really knows it happens. And um, there are ways to prevent this, and that's what the Blue campaign focuses on, is ways to prevent this. And the first way is getting the word out. A lot of people are involved in some form of human trafficking, like a scary number of people, more than you or I would ever really expect. Like thousands and thousands every day are involved in this heinous crime across the world, the US included. We like to think of things like this as something that happens in other countries where we're not involved, but it happens here. It happens a lot here, and it's very scary. And a good way to combat that is getting the word out, making sure people just know about it as a crime that happens, and you can really try to see the warning signs of human trafficking. And um, there are a few warning signs. Very few human trafficking victims will go out and say, "Hey, I'm being trafficked by this person," because they're afraid of the person trafficking them. They don't, or they're dependent on the person trafficking them in some cases. If they're like an illegal immigrant and that person is the only person keeping them in the States, they might want to hold on to that person no matter how much it hurts them. But there are a few signs of human trafficking. Appearing malnourished. If they don't feed you enough, you can appear thin and sickly. And obviously, there are other things that can cause this, like anorexia, or people are just thin. Oops, sorry. People are just thin. But it's something you can look out for. There's showing signs of physical injury or abuse. Many human trafficking victims are treated as less than human, like animals or property, so they'll be abused most often by their whoever purchased them or whoever's trafficking them, etc., etc. They might avoid, avoid eye contact, social interaction, or any sort of interaction with law enforcement because they're just afraid. They feel like you or the police officer will get them in trouble if they have too much contact with you. So they'll try not to do that. Uh, Lots of times, if they're in social situations, they'll sound like a manner that's scripted, unnatural, robotic, something that seems practiced to a point. Um, they can, like I said earlier, if they're lacking official identification, a lot of times human traffickers will take away passports, driver's licenses, birth certificates, social security cards, just so they have even more of a reliance on them. So even if they do escape or get away, they can't do much without their official documents. Appearing like really destitute, wearing very, very old clothing, and looking dirty or unclean. Obviously, this isn't a be all end all, as some people either don't shower, can't shower, just can't afford good clothes. Doesn't mean they're necessarily being human, they're a victim of human trafficking, but it can be something to look out for. Working very, very long hours, like excessive amounts of hours every week, and we'll get more into that when I cover the different types. Living at the place in which they're employed. Sometimes it happens, sometimes, especially small business owners will have, like, a shop on their bottom floor and live on the top floor, but, obviously, it can be very, alarming if someone, like, lives where they work, like a normal worker lives where they work. Any sort of branding, like tattoos or burns, a lot of people like to, it sickens me to say this, mark their property in a sort of way, and, just trying to, uh trying to show that they, in a way, to themselves, that they're less than human. A lot of people will do that. It's very messed up, but it's something that happens. Okay, so there's a few different types of human trafficking. There's sexual human trafficking, which is the one most people think of. There's working human trafficking, and there's domestic human trafficking. Sexual human trafficking is forcing someone to sell themselves for sex, through coercions, threats, promises of love, etc., and just forcing them to just prostitute themselves at places like gas stations, hotels, a lot of other places. And if a minor is, anyone under the age of 18 is forced into any sort of sexual act, that is considered human trafficking, no exceptions. The second is working human trafficking. So people are forced to work for little to, if any, pay, and forced to work egregiously long hours. We covered that a little bit ago. Just really forced to sell themselves to their work and sacrifice sleep, food, downtime, everything just to their job for pennies on the dollar, that sort of thing. And domestic is kind of the most hidden one. It's essentially forcing someone through threats, coercions, etc., to like be a personal maid, a domestic help, nanny. So you can get the advantages of having like a maid or a nanny or what have you without paying for one. And last thing I'll cover is the difference between human trafficking and human smuggling. They sound pretty similar, but they're actually very different. Human trafficking, like we just said, involves coercing or forcing someone to do something against their will, whether that be prostitute themselves, work long hours, or work inside your house. And human smuggling is smuggling people across a border, like, for example, smuggling, putting a bunch of, I don't know, Canadian people in your van and driving across the border without telling Border Patrol that there are people in there. That's human smuggling. Trafficking doesn't involve any sort of transportation. It really just involves forcing someone to do something against their will and like profiting off of it. Because it's a very profitable business, like many sort of underground operations are. And it's just such a gross and vile part of humanity that we really need to start accepting so we can start um, addressing the issue. All right, I think that's all I got for you. Thanks.